Hello, one and all, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Under the Influences. I am your host, Jon Phipps, and my guest is in the green room making me die laughing. I wish you could see what he's doing right now, but I got to get through the introduction to this thing. Or else I'll be a box of giggles and I won't be able to do anything. So, for those of you who are new, seeing this for the first time, I am your host, Jon Phipps, and what I do on this show is I sit down with various guests and we talk about their favorite band or singer, and then we talk about the album of that person's choosing. And my guest tonight, by the way, before we get any further, I gotta say a special thank you to Julio Morales for sitting in for me last week when I had a cold and sounded like shit. And I sound better now, hopefully. And so special thanks to Julio for that. Jay Thompson was a wonderful guest last week. And now, without further ado, if he ever reappears, you can't see this from my perspective, but my guest, he was in the green room pulling weird faces and all like that, and now he has vanished, and there he is again, ladies and gentlemen, the Swedish sensation, Swedish Elvis, the man that, I don't know. I had a thing in my head to describe him, and then it left my mind in a flash. So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, our special guest this week, Lars Nagel. Howdy, sir. How are you, sir? It's good to see you. He's doing the...
I'm only going to communicate in sign language, John. That's what I was going to tell you in the green room.
There you go. So you got your camera turned around. We are good to go. So,
hello, world.
Yes. So we have gathered here today. Why am I?
It's like a funeral, John.
I was about to say, why am I making this sound like a big speech?
So who are we burying this evening?
You might see two careers get buried after tonight. So
yeah,
I don't have. We are here.
Okay, I got nothing to lose.
So we are here, me and Lars, to talk the Eagles, and we are here to talk about them, and in particular, their great Hotel California album. So, Lars, let's start at there it is. Let's start at the top of things here. No. And we'll talk about when you first became a fan of the Eagles and what were some of the first songs that you kind of latched onto as an early Eagles fan.
Well, John. First of all, I'd like to say I plead innocent of all charges.
Oh boy!
I became an enormous Eagles fan about 3 weeks ago.
Oh God! Here we go. See,
actually, I picked them up. I found out about a month and a half ago, and then I started buying their music this week. And now I'm going to talk about him.
Here's the thing about Lars. When you do an interview with him,
this is what Pepsi will do for your body.
Yeah. This is how an interview with Lars goes. You'll start it out and you think you'll have everything in line, but it's like, what's a good comparison? It's like when Charles Grodin used to come on Letterman. Grodin would just rip up everything that Letterman had, or when Rickles would come on Johnny Carson. It was just whatever you had planned, just toss it out the window. But that's the great thing about Lars. We have to have a character like that in our stable somewhere.
Which Eagles are you referring to? I'm just kidding.
Oh, God.
I'm here to discuss the football team.
Oh, no. Oh,
John,
don't get...
You're an Eagles fan, aren't you?
Yes. Yes. As for the ones in Philadelphia, not so much. So, so anyway, so see, this is also what he does. He'll throw you off with this stuff, and then you'll just try to backpedal and get it back, and there's just no way you can do it. It can't be done.
It's like the singing performances. What you do is you rehearse it to the bone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then when you play, you got all this room to, you know, be loose about it and have fun. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I rehearsed the Hotel California conversation very much, but no, man. You were asking me how did I and when did I get into them Eagles? Well, the answer, John, I would say I was very young, and it's funny because it wasn't really my generation. I talked to Thomas Cheshire a while ago about this, and you know, we were kind of the opposite. You know, some people like in our generation, you'd have that early 80s, you'd be in the new wave or the punk rock phase and all that stuff, and sort of, you know, not think it'd be cool to listen to the Eagles, right? But I did, and I listened to a lot of that type of stuff growing up. And I can't remember who turned me on to it. It could have been American radio. It could have been coming here in '76, you know, and it was just so well played, of course. And, you know, a particular song, I guess, actually, to continue my previous thing there, like Tom, for example, said, you know, a lot of this stuff, like Springsteen, the Eagles and whatever, that kind of stuff, you know, some people come around to it later. You know, when they were 16, 17 in the mid 80s, it wasn't the coolest thing to listen to, right? Yeah. But then you turn 40 or 50 or something, and you sort of you stop thinking about those things, and you just decide for yourself what it is that you think sounds good or great, right? Yeah. So for me, anyways, I would say Hotel California, perhaps a cliche answer. And it could have been stuff off On the Border, even, you know, their second, I don't even know their discography. I'm not even, maybe the second release or third release. Hotel was the fifth record they made. But I would say maybe On the Border, some tracks off of there. When they in fact covered, when I think it was Glenn Fry who sang Tom Waits' Old 55. Oh, yeah. So I discovered a number of those artists. I didn't know who Tom Waits was in 1979. You know what I mean? But I learned his music through that Eagles song, and I still think their cover is fantastic of him. You know. Yeah. But as far as Hotel California, the particular song, to me, probably as a kid growing up in Europe, and people forget sometimes in the 70s and in the 80s, a good bit into the 80s, how different America was to the rest of the world. It wasn't, since it's, you know, you know, other countries sort of have caught up and become more Americanized. Yeah. But growing up in the 70s in Europe and having 2 TV channels, and coming over here, and, you know, you have a Cartoon Network, it's just for kids, you know what I mean? And you have TV all night long. Starsky and Hutch comes on at 1 a.m, you know, Rockford Files at 2. You get the TV guide, grocery stores being open, all, you know, so that whole sort of, it was just a different, it was such a strange and foreign land. And when you hear a song called Hotel California, and to me, I guess as a kid, it attracted me to Southern California, and or maybe the myth of it. Yeah, you know what I mean. And,
I was just reading. I was reading a thing just not long ago. I think it might have been Glenn Fry talking about when they wrote that album, and they just like, when they say, Glenn was like, when we wrote Hotel California, we were centering just on the mystic of California, just the picture that everyone gets in their mind.
You're absolutely right, and that, I mean, again, I think the myth of it is what makes you write the song. Obviously, it made them write the song, but it also makes could make a 10-year-old kid in Sweden think that, well, what is this place like, right? I mean, they're not loaded with snow. It's not 20 below. And you learn about those things later, and then you sort of come to find out that there's a fine line between the American dream and the American nightmare. And that's, to me, it probably, really more than anything, it's really what represented that album.
Yeah.
You know, more than maybe the relationship type songs or the party type songs. So yeah, a combination of those things, Jon. It was big. It was as big as a dream, that record and that title. And yeah, so it sounds crazy, but I've been listening to that albums, I guess, almost 40 years, you know.
And I gotta ask, do you prefer the Beatles pre or post Bernie Lennon?
I thought you said the Beatles for a minute.
Did I really say the Beatles? Oh my God. I said the Beatles.
Well,
I want everyone here who's watching this to just imagine the Beatles singing Hotel California.
or Bernie Lennon singing Hard Day's Night.
Yes. So
Jon, that's one of the best questions in rock and roll ever asked. Do you prefer the Beatles during the Bernie Lennon era? But at first I thought, am I hearing you wrong? And you said Lennon, and I did
not. I know for a fact I didn't say Lennon. I'm not that far gone.
Bernie Lennon.
Jesus Christ! So let me reword. Let me reword that again.
No, Jon, go ahead. I know what you meant, but go ahead.
So Eagles. So do you prefer the Eagles pre or post Bernie Lennon?
That's a few part type question. The first question I was going to ask you. It's one of those things like with the artist Rocky Erickson, with Bernie Lennon or Bernie Leadon. Yeah, I've kept asking people over the years, is it Lennon or Bernie Leadon? And some interviews I've actually heard different pronunciations of that of his name. But you said Bernie Leadon. I kind of like Bernie Leadon, so we're gonna.
Yeah.
No. Well, the thing about Bernie Leadon, as you probably know, he came out of a number of those. Well, for one, he came out of the Flying Burrito Brothers with Graham Parsons. Mm-hmm. He was in, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he was also in a band called Hearts and Flowers. But he's for people out there that may not know Bernie Leadon, he was and still is. He's a multi-instrumentalist, and he's a country rock player. He plays the mandolin, the banjo, an incredible lead guitar player. So, back to the question here. Do I prefer his era versus the Don Felder era and the Joe Walsh era?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of intertwining there because obviously Don Felder and Bernie Leadon played together on a number of records in the Eagles. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, man. I mean, are you talking song-wise or are you talking about
just music-wise, just overall sound?
I mean, no, there are only a few bands when I am in the entire journey, and it's the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and the Eagles. To me, I kind of, any era, again, of course, and we'll talk about Hotel in a minute. It's hard to argue with Hotel California because, they've just added Joe Walsh to the lineup, and they had a rock and roll guitar player, and maybe in some ways, to your point or to your question, maybe Don Felder, who by the way, I think is the guy who gave Tom Petty his first guitar lesson. So maybe Don Felder, in a way, working with Joe Walsh, gave him maybe a little more edge, kind of on the rock side. But at the same time, you put on that stuff they did again on those records with Bernie and I can't pick, John. The answer is, John, I can't tell you. I love both eras, but really,
yeah,
Bernie,
I get that.
Bernie is extraordinary. Yeah,
I get that a lot. So,
yeah,
we will. Okay, first of all, sticking in the Lennon era, just a little bit longer. What's your
in the John Lennon era?
Jesus, here we go. He's never gonna let me live this down either. He's never gonna let me live it down.
I will. So, I will. It's one of the best things I think you can ask anybody. That's so perfect. And now watch me hearing you wrong, John, and we go back and we hear the tape, and you actually said Bernie Lennon and the Beatles. I mean, and the Eagles. If somebody listens to this conversation, and they don't know some of the players, man, we're really going to confuse them, John.
Oh yeah.
You know, when Don Felder joined the Eagles instead of Billy Preston, joined the Beatles instead of Billy Preston only to get back sessions, it really gave the band a boost.
Oh boy, that would be sending people to the hospital with aneurysms. That was just, So, sticking in the Lennon era.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned Old 55. What are some other songs from that time frame that you love?
Again, probably most of them, but I'll tell you, I will tell you, John, my favorite probably, and I was thinking about covering, but I'm not good at doing covers, but there's a song, I believe it's on the Border, and it's a song called My Man. And I believe Bernie Lennon wrote it, and you can Google it up, and maybe he sang it. Anyways, and at the time, it was written for Graham Parsons. You know, Graham died in 1973, and Bernie wrote this song called My Man. And it's probably, I'm going to stick to that. It's certainly not a known song. It's a deep track, deep cut. But as a kid, I went straight to that song. Then again, you got You Never Cry Like a Lover, Already Gone. Doolin Dalton on Desperado, the second version of Desperado. Both, but the second one is really great. Henley has always said he was so disappointed with the way he recorded his Desperado vocals, because they were cutting that record in London. I think it was Glenn Johns. If it's not Glenn Johns, correct me, somebody on the thread. And Henley said they had him sit in front of the orchestra, the symphony orchestra, and cut the vocal live. Wow. And he said those guys were so sort of, they had their nose turned up to these kind of young rocker guys who they didn't really respect and so forth. And they were just looking at the magazine, staring at, How to Build a Better Home magazine while they were playing Desperado in the studio, because it was so easy for them, not a challenge. And Henley felt like I was just scared shitless, and I couldn't really do the vocal that I wanted to do, right? But yeah, anyways, but I like, I like that second version. I would say Desperado, the title track on that record, Doolin Dalton for sure. I'm gonna stick with those two, and then On the Border, You Never Cry Like a Lover, My Man. First record, There's a Train Leaves Here This Morning. It had a big hit on there. Peaceful Easy Feeling, I think, was on there. Yes. But Train Leaves Here This Morning, great. On One of These Nights, man. There's a song called that Tanya Tucker covered. No, I can't remember the name of it. Do you know?
Let me see. What this is on which record?
It's on One of These Nights. Some habits that you just can't lose.
Okay, I'm going.
After the Thriller's Gone.
That's the one.
Yeah, After the Thriller's Gone is a great cut off of One of These Nights, and I think Tanya Tucker covered it in the mid '70s. Maybe I've covered them all here. We got the first Eagles Desperado, On the Border, One of These Nights. Yeah, those are the first 4 albums, and so I would, I'm probably leaving something out off On the Border. James Dean, I thought was a cool song.
Oh yeah. So speaking of, so we've covered the first four, but now we're going to touch on the fifth, and the one that is the center of conversation here, Hotel California. It says here on the old Wikipedia machine, Hotel California is the fifth studio album by American rock band The Eagles. The album was recorded by Bill, whose last name I'm not even going to try to pronounce. Simchick.
Yeah,
Bill Simchick at the Criteria and Record Plant Studios between March and October of 1976, and then released on Asylum in December. It was their first guitar. It was their first. Here I go again. It was their first album with guitarist Joe Walsh, who had replaced founding member Bernie Ledden, and it is the last album to feature bassist Randy Meisner.
Yeah.
Front cover is a photograph of the Beverly Hills Hotel by David Alexander. And I was reading through this earlier, and there was a pretty interesting thing about the cover photo. It says here, the front cover artwork is a photograph of the Beverly Hills Hotel shot just before sunset by David Alexander with design and art direction by Kosh, whatever Kosh is. According to Kosh, Henley wanted him to find a place that can portray the Hotel California, the album title, and quote-unquote portray it with a slightly sinister edge. 3 hotels were photographed, and the one with the Beverly Hills Hotel was selected as the cover. The photographer shot the image 60 feet above Sunset Boulevard on the top of a cherry picker. So just a bit of interesting facts there. So now we will get into the meat and potatoes of this. We will go.
And you know what else, John? This is interesting. Now I'm going to throw you on. Hotel California was released December 8th on the day that John Lennon was murdered.
Yes, 4 years prior.
Yeah.
76.
And I'm going to plug something really cool here. This is a first. This is not what I'm plugging, but this is the first pressing of Hotel California.
Wow.
And this one here is a basic 180 gram reissue. Sounds good. But they released this thing, man, a little while ago, and I think Bob Ross was talking about it. It's called The Eagles Live at the Forum. They did a couple of nights at the Forum in 76. Now the record was released in December, and these shows were a few months before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so cool to hear some of these tracks, especially when they go into Hotel California, and people hadn't heard it. And the introductions, and here's a new song that we're gonna do, and it's gonna be released later this year, and we hope you like it.
There's a couple of people in the comments wondering why your name tag says SARS. There's a whole story behind this.
Well, Amity, I'll tell you why. It's because you know who gave me that name? Kim Ware.
Yes. Back when Lars and Heidi and all of them caught Nagel 20. Forget COVID-19. They had Nagel 20. That is why we have gave him the name card, the tag of SARS for the night. So, okay.
Well, I mean, it's also was Amity we were kidding around about something. I can't remember what it was. And then Kim Ware just said, she put it under the comment like SARS, Nagel, and Heidi started laughing, saying, "Why on earth how come we've never said that?" It's the most obvious name, right?
Well, you hadn't done a stream while sickly until then.
Yeah.
So you said by the way, speaking of plugs, I need to plug BLT here. I'm contractually obligated to plug BLT. That man right there is the tomato of the BLT festival, BLT show, bacon, lettuce, tomato show on Kimono My House, and Lars is disappearing again. See, that's what he was doing when we were in the green room, where I was doing the intro and he was cracking me up. He was doing all of that. So
I have my pants on though, John.
So, see, lost my train of thought again. Due to the
No, you were just going to ask me
due to
about
the Swedish silliness.
No, John, but you know what? We were talking about this, and you were giving me the rundown on the record, and I think when a band, I'm only guessing, but when you've done a few records and you didn't come out swinging out of the gate, let's say like the Pistols came out with Nevermind the Bullets, they never had to make another album, and they basically didn't. When Guns N' Roses came out with that first one, with Appetite, that's your album. You know, whatever you do after there is going to be what it's going to be. The Eagles didn't do that, right? They went through the four records that we talked about, and they made great records. But then something happened there where you already know, this is all common knowledge, that I think the band and Henley and Fry, they wanted a little more rock and roll edge to the band. And I don't know if Bernie Leadon, I don't think he was fired. I think it kind of was maybe a kind of a mutual thing when he left, and they kind of traded. Well, look at Bernie singing, but look at Joe Walsh's, smashing hotel rooms thing. It kind of maybe it'll work. So when, I think a band can feel on some level when they've gathered some songs and they're going into the studio, and something within there tells them that we're making the record now that we're supposed to make. Yeah. We have the right personnel. We have Felder still here. We have Randy Meisner, phenomenal, right? We've got the band, and we've done those 4 records. And in some ways, Hotel California is not sonically, but it has a feel of when, for example, the Stones did Some Girls, to where the band feels a little bit of inherent pressure to come up with something fresh, to come up with something a little different. You look at the Stones records in the 70s, those Goat's Head Soup and It's Only Rock and Roll, Black and Blue, great records, but Some Girls had to be like, now we got to compete against the punk rockers and the glam and all that shit, right? Yeah. And I think the Eagles, with bringing in Joe Walsh, got away a little bit from that country rock sound that they had previously with Bernie. Now we have 2 rock and roll guitar players, and the guys are obviously writing a little more together. It's not just, you know what I mean? Yeah. So you just kind of know. And then who was it? Don Felder wrote the intro to Hotel California and had it on a tape. Again, common knowledge. And they passed demos around, and Henley and Fry and has been known to say, we're listening through all these different songs, and the hotel riff comes on. They go, oh, there's a good one. So, and then I think Henley wrote most of the lyrics to it. So it was just one of those things where the band, I said they might have known it, but whether they knew it or not, they were collectively ready to make that enormous jump. And Hotel California brought them a single that who else other than Zeppelin with Stairway, Skinner with Freebird, Hotel California. Well, I don't know what the 4th epic song is in rock and roll, right? But those 3, and I mean, most bands don't get to write a song like that. So it kind of, I'm just going on and on about it, but there are a number of factors that will contribute to a band making that huge jump 4 records in. I mean, that's a long career. Yeah. Touring and playing and recording. That's just not, hey, we wrote a great record and now we're enormous. It took a while for them to get there. So I think they were ready lyrically. I think they were ready spiritually. I think they were ready as far as musician wise, and they were always fantastic, but they were ready to make that real jump. And Bill Zimchik, the producer, I think he mixed it in Miami as well. it was recorded in Miami, you know, and in Los Angeles, March through October. I read that earlier too, and I think it might have been, yeah, it was mixed in Miami too. So, yeah, wall to wall, man. It's just it'll knock your socks off if you give it a shot.
Yeah. So we will now jump into the track by track breakdown of this deal. So, though you may have already just spoke for the first track on this, which is
I
the
think
title
I did,
track
yeah.
of the record, Hotel California. God almighty, what a tune.
Dude, I remember living in Spain in 1986 in the coast of Spain, and we had two albums. I mean, we had on the boombox. We had Stones' Tattoo You, and we had Hotel California on there. It was just, we had other records as well, but that was kind of a nonstop thing, and that was probably 6 years into knowing the record. I've lived with it for so long that all right, we'll make a quick little roundabout here since we did talk about it. But again, as a kid, as a 9-10-year-old kid growing up in Sweden, that track, since we're talking about the title track, it was as big as a dream because of the name, because of the hotel, because of the colors of the cup on the cover, the gatefold. It had that really big attraction to Southern California. And as we talked about earlier, or the myth of Southern California, rather, right?
Yeah.
And then you come to find out that obviously it's not like that, you know, and as Henley said, there's a fine line between the American dream and the American nightmare. And that kind of, to me, sums up that particular track. I mean, not to mention the guitar playing, you know, it's fabulous.
So we will pivot from the title track, Hotel California, to another damn fine song. Track number 2, Johnny Come Lately. There's a new kid in town. New kid in town. That was more or less Glenn Frey's coming out party.
My man, Glenn Frey.
Yes.
It would break my. I saw the Eagles. I've seen them once. I got to see him with a long run lineup, not the long run tour, but the long run lineup. Eventually in 1994 with Timothy B. Schmidt, you know, Don Felder still in the band, and everybody else. And anyways, yeah, Glenn Frey, you know, just those. I think this record is the reason I wrote an old photographs, John.
Yeah.
You know, this record is the reason that I became whatever songwriter I am today. I couldn't use it in the 90s and a big portion of the 2000s because we're playing hard rock. You know, so these types of ideas that I had, and I'm not saying anything that I do sounds like comes out of Hotel California. Yeah. It doesn't, but I don't think it does. But it made me write the way I write today. And Glenn Frey with that sort of, new kid in town. What is it? There's talk on the street. It's there to remind you. Does it really matter which side you're on? You're walking away, and they're talking behind you. Yeah. It's a little romantic love tune, and it's also about you're only as good as the last hit you had on the radio. You know what I mean? It's a song probably about. I don't know, like, oh, sorry, did I lose you there?
No, I'm still here.
Yeah. It's about accepting that you're going to be replaced. And it's about, you know, the next boyfriend's coming. You know her next boyfriend's coming. You know, the next band and the next artist is coming. So it's sort of, to me, it's about loving the beauty of the moment.
Yeah.
And other than that, it just kind of sails away. You know, these songs are not that. And again, it's probably what attracted me to it lyrically as a songwriter, because they're not that complicated. It's not like you're trying to decipher a Tom Waits song.
Yeah.
Or if you should do that or not. I'm just saying, but it's different. But it's hard to write simple. And as long as you mean it, it's going to get its message across, right? So yeah, man, you look in her eyes, the music begins to play. Hopeless Romance, here we go again.
Yeah. So we'll go from New Kid in Town to track 3, Life in the Fast Lane. And I don't know, I think it was maybe, God, 02 or 03, where they put out that big thing of like another greatest hits thing, and they had a booklet in there where they were interviewing all of them about each song. And I think it was this one where Felder said, yeah, this song is just, you could smell the cocaine coming off it.
Yeah.
Life in the Fast Lane. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, it's yeah, I mean, that's pretty much, you're about wrapped it up right there. To me, it's my least favorite song on Hotel California.
Really?
Now, that doesn't mean that I don't like it, but it's the least favorite song. Why? I don't know, other than maybe, I don't know, when I look at artists like I worship Jackson Browne's music as a songwriter. And I don't need Jackson Browne to rock. I don't need Jackson Browne to rock and roll. And in the same way that I don't really need the Eagles to rock and roll. I your Lying Eyes and all that stuff. I don't need for them to have a big rock riff for me to like them more. If I want my rock and roll, there are other places to go, right? So, but yeah, so maybe that is one of the reasons for me that Joe Walsh riff is obviously just killer. I've seen Don Henley a couple of times in solo, and he's done that, and it's just, I mean, it's a crowd pleaser, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a funky rock and roll song with a great beat, and I think most people know the story with Glenn Frey riding on the freeway with his drug dealer friend, and he wanted the guy to slow down, and he said, what do you mean? This is life in the fast lane. And then Glenn's like, being a songwriter that he is, hey, that, it's just a good rocker.
So we'll both close out side 1 and open side 2 with the same song.
I'm so glad you said that. I even had that written down. Wasted Time. Track 4, side 1.
Yes, leading into track 1, side 2. So tell us, talk a little bit about Wasted Time.
We just went from Fast Lane, which is my least favorite track on the album, to Wasted Time, which is my favorite track on the album. And it's a hard pick.
Yeah.
If you let me keep talking about it, most of them are going to be my favorite track. But, it's Wasted Time to me, the biggest, and I didn't know this as a kid, of course, but it's not a country rocker. It's got nothing to do with country. It's not even a slow country rocker. Slow country music song, but it is almost a soul song. It's really a bit of a soul song, and I would say it's Henley's crowning achievement, maybe apart from The Last Resort that we'll get to in a bit. Wow. But yeah, and I think it's his best vocal performance on the record, and you look at some of the lines, you don't care much for a stranger's touch, but you can't hold your man, Sometimes you got to keep it together. Sometimes to keep it together, you got to leave it alone, right? There's some real stingers. There's another one that I remember also partly wrote down. You never thought you'd be alone this far down the line. And the hours go by like minutes, and the years keep rushing on. And when he gets to that autumn part, the autumn leaves have got you thinking about the first time that you fell. This is a killer one. You didn't love the boy too much. You just loved the boy too well. And so you can go on with your search, baby. and I can go on with mine, and maybe someday we'll find that it wasn't wasted time. You know what I mean? It's sort of, and I think it's a matter of, because these are not, we're not talking about like in the whatever cool world is about an album that you just know, but this is an album where if you give it a shot, if you get a cup of coffee or a 6-pack of beer or a cup of tea, and you sit down and you listen to it, and you go through those lines the way Henley, and particularly Henley and Fry wrote, it kind of it still blows my mind today, man. Yeah, that's what I got for you on that one.
So we'll go from Wasted Time to the song that might just be my favorite on this record, Victim of Love.
Jon, allow me.
Go for it.
Before we go to Victim of Love, as you know, Wasted Time, the instrumental kicks off side 2.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which I'm not sure if it was necessary for them to have it on there, but now all these years later, and I'm sure, I don't know if Bob Ross is on it tonight, but I'm sure I would imagine he would agree. It's hard for me to hear Victim of Love without hearing the lead up of the instrumental tune.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where you're so accustomed to hearing it, it just weirds you out when you don't. It's like hearing Long Distance Run Around and The Fish separately.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
Well, I mean, it's probably weird to people like us who are like, I mean, we're different generations, me and you, obviously, but we're part of the same LP generation, right? If you didn't grow up with LPs, well, it's just separate tracks. You can go from Hotel California to The Last Resort, and you're totally fine, and it doesn't mean anything to you, right? Yeah. But if you grew up with, you got the needle on the turntable, and even if you wanted to move to, let's say, Victim of Love, and you wanted to skip the intro, well, you had to fiddle with it. And I'm just going to sit here and do something else. So it became so ingrained in your listening, in the listening experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why even hearing it, if you hear it on the radio now, I'll be like, I kind of just go backwards. Oh, well, there's the intro.
Yeah.
Victim of Love, Jon. I made myself a couple of notes on this one, and because I had to think about it. I guess what I love the most about it are the tough lyrics, borderline mean lyrics that sort of came out of a sort of bitter that came out of a bitterness of a dream that didn't come true, or it came true. Be careful what you set your heart on, right? Because you might get it. I mean, some people never come clean. I think you know what I mean. There's so many, tell me your secrets, I'll tell you mine. This ain't no time to be cool. You can tell all your girlfriends and your been around the world friends that talk is for cheap, talk is for losers and fools. They just, Victim of Love, I see a broken heart. I could be wrong, but I'm not. No, I'm not. It's your favorite song. Tell me.
It's just, it's not so much the lyrics as much as it is the sound.
Yeah.
It's just when it hits in, when you first hear it, it just grabs you by your shirt collar and pulls you in. And I love songs like that. I absolutely adore songs like that.
And Jon, you're so informative and you're so on top of anything you talk about. And that's why I'm so glad you brought up Bernie Leadon, because to your earlier point this evening, would they have cut Victim of Love with Bernie Leadon? No, not in a million years. You needed to have Felder and Joe Walsh. You needed that guitar attack. You needed that type of meat on the guitars.
Yeah.
And that, again, that's not a country song, right? That's not a country rock song at all. That's just a mid-tempo 70s rocker that's got, again, one of the best singers in the world, Henley killing it. And I guess for me, it's the mean lyrics combined with that heavy, I want to play air guitar when I just hear what, it wouldn't have been done with Bernie Ledden. I mean, an amazing player, but they needed Walsh in there for that to take that next level step. Yes.
So we'll go from there to track 3, side 2.
Yeah.
Pretty Maids All in a Row. Joe Walsh's first Eagles song where he sings lead.
Yeah. And I think a cool thing that I just knew recently, and Bob Dylan said that he thought that that's one of the best songs ever.
Wow.
And he got some crap for saying that, but what was I going to say about it? To me, here's what I was going to say. They were talking, the people that were sort of poo-pooing it a little bit was saying that maybe had Fry or Henley or even Randy Meisner, or not even Randy Meisner, but had he sung it, it would have maybe been a better track. But I don't think there would have been a better person suited for that job than Joe Walsh. And obviously Joe Walsh wrote it with a great drummer, with Joe Vitale. And it's one of the 2 tracks. It's either the only track or it's one of 2 tracks on Hotel that Henley and Fry had nothing to do with, other than doing some stuff on the track. But as far as creating the song, but they knew that this thing is so strong. I mean, it's like Lennon and McCartney. They're not going to put a song on there if it doesn't matter who they are, right? Yeah. And maybe Joe Walsh could play the part of George Harrison and they go, well, we're going to, no, this is a great track. And I thought about this earlier today in between a work session, what makes me really love this song. And this is one of my favorite tracks on a record again. I sent it to Tom Chest the other night. And one thing I never thought about until today was there's so much space in that track. There's so much atmosphere, the imagery, where the imagery in Hotel California, it's so obvious, right? I mean, a 9-year-old kid like me could be like, well, it's Disneyland and it's palm trees and whatever it is, right? Yeah. Whatever your idea of it. And when you get older, you're going to have a different image of it. But with Pretty Maids All in a Row, it's so spacious. And the way he sings it, and when they bring in the slide guitar, it opens up the track even more. It's because it's very easy to crowd a song. They could have had, and I'm in the moment in the studio, and I'm not trying to crowd my songs, because when you can do more, you naturally want to do more. And those guys, there was nothing they couldn't do, right?
Yeah.
So to me, and the lyrics, I sent some of those lyrics to Tom last night, and we kind of talked about it for a little bit. I don't know. There's so much space in between each line, and the way he sings it. Heroes, they come and go. To leave us behind as if we're supposed to know. And the way he kind of just laid it out there, fabulous. What's your dig on it, if we have time?
We'll save that for another go, because we only got 10 minutes left to go.
Okay.
So you were talking about the 2 songs where Henley and Fry had nothing to do with it. They're actually right next to each other.
I'm guessing. Yeah. So Try and Love Again.
Try and Love Again. Randy Meisner's only real contribution to this.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting, because some people are good at solo and band, and good at solo and not in the band. Some people are good to be in a band and not solo. Randy Meisner, to me, is the guy that was at the top of his game while he was in the Eagles. I've tried his solo records. I bought him. I sold him. I bought him. I sold him. And damn it, dude, I've done it 5 times. Who knows? And of course, for people that don't know out there, Randy Meisner wrote "Take It to the Limit."
Yes,
One of my
mine too.
John, you asked me
God,
about
I
the
just love that
songs.
song.
You asked me about the songs before. One of my favorite, the Bernie Leadon era.
Yeah.
"Take It to the Limit" is my number one. I mean,
Man,
every line, every word, every line. And there's a show, and they took it down, but I want you to, if you can find it, from Washington D.C. at the Capitol Center from 1977. And those days, I mean, the Eagles looked great. You know what I mean? They had their long hair, and they had their San Diego Chargers church and T-shirts. And in the 90s, they're starting to look very corporate.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't even recognize Don Henley and Glenn Frey. I mean, Timothy B. Schmidt kind of looked the same.
Yeah.
But those guys look so cool, and they all kind of look like they were in the Burrito Brothers with Graham Parsons. It's all the same. And now, and by the way, Glenn Frey plays lead in "Try Love Again." There's no slouch in that band, and that's having Don Felder and Joe Walsh. When you have those guys in the band, and you go, well, I think I'm going to take this lead here. You got some balls, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you're out there on your own, when your memories can find you, would I lose or win if I try to love again? It's a simple story. But Randy Meisner's vocals, I think lyrically, "Take It to the Limit" is a whole entirely different level.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not talking radio popularity, but just in terms of, wow, you know what I mean? And this one is more, it just kind of sits there. As you said about songs a couple of songs ago, this one, to me, the lyrics are, he's so great, he can sing the damn phone book, but it's the delivery and it's the chorus, how they shift those two bits there, and they're kind of similar with their backup vocals. Fabulous. Yeah.
So we'll close things out with the last song on the record, and you said you were particularly fond of "The Last Resort." So tell us a little bit about "The Last Resort."
Well, I wouldn't have written "Old Photographs" without it. I think, again, it's Don Henley at his finest. When I heard it in 78, 9, or 80, or whenever that was the first time, again, the imagery that it brought to me wasn't what I realized. Oops, somebody needs to Facebook me here. Hang on, John. I got to get him off.
It never fails, does it?
No,
it never fails.
No. And I had something good to say there. I'm going to try to remember it. It's, the imagery that I had of it in, let's say, 1980 versus 2022 are the same and also different. And that's the beauty of music, right? The imagery can change in these songs, but you can also just go back and completely isolate the how you view it today, and you can go back and see it the way you did 30 years ago, right? It's the realistic view of it is about mankind destroying the beautiful things in our environment, right? That's really what the song is about. It's about, some rich man came and raped the land and nobody caught him. I don't know, love and despair, and it's got a lot. This one is full of, it's so much despair, but it has this beautiful setting to it. That it doesn't have the well, no, I almost was going to say something about Leonard Cohen, but I'm going to take that back. I love Leonard Cohen, but Leonard Cohen just keeps taking you to hell, right? I mean, at least for me. But with this one, it's got that heavy despair with a really beautiful arrangement, which a lot of times, which is, I think, what Graham Parsons did too. A lot of songs were in major keys, but they could bounce around a little bit, but then all of a sudden he's just talking about murdering somebody, right? and you sort of, whoa, what happened there? But the harmonies and the melodies are amazing, and this is about mankind being our own worst enemy. You know, when we find something good and beautiful, we destroy it by being who we are.
Yep.
And now, again, of course, I wasn't going to make that. I was going to make that out of it back in 1979 or 80. Henley had a great quote, and I wrote this down. And he said, I think he said it was in 1978. He said, "We have mortgaged our future for gain and greed."
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just about to say they wrote that song 5 years ago, and it only gets truer with every year.
Yeah. It's as relevant today, or it just gets more and more irrelevant, sadly. But just and you think about it too, John. That's and I never knew this until the other day too. When I was playing it, that's a 7-minute plus tune. You know, and it doesn't feel like 7 minutes to me. It doesn't feel like, oh God, here's Freebird, and I got to get through it. And I mean that in the best of ways. That's an amazing song. But The Last Resort is, I think, 7+ minutes long, and I don't know, man. To me, perhaps Henley's crowning achievement on this album, and I'm going to stick to it. If you let me say anything else about it, I'm going to throw in Wasted Time, but I'm going to stop.
Yeah, I think okay, so before he spends another 47 minutes talking about Wasted Time, we will wrap her up here. So Lars, thank you so much for coming on. When me and Renee were first planning this out, you were at the top of the list of folks that we wanted to have. And the beautiful thing is, we didn't know which album you were going to choose, because for those of you who don't know Lars, this man is a walking record encyclopedia. He's doing this thing on Facebook. He's doing this 1,000 most influential albums thing, and he has enough to do that 4 or 5 times over. He's the music. He's the one with has the level of music knowledge that I wish I had. So,
John, I don't short sell yourself there, because I think there's a lot, as a friend of mine used to say about himself. I would tell him, man, what do you not? I mean, you're just making my head spin. But he would say, I know what I know. And it's the same thing with me. I couldn't sit here and talk to you about jazz, and a number of things that you like, and you're equally knowledgeable of it. And it's interesting because I had a number of records. When you asked me to do this, Hotel California wasn't even on my radar. I had a bunch of, I could have brought up Some Girls. I could have brought up The River with Bruce. I could have brought up Born to Run or Darkness in Nebraska. I could have brought up, there's so many records I could have rolled off. But I wanted to bring a record into the mix that was one of my all-time favorite records, but also a record that I knew very little about, other than that I knew the music inside out, right? Yeah. But I didn't know, and in all reality, I could talk to you about the Rolling Stones and the relationships they had between their girlfriends in 1979, but I can't talk to you a lot in depth about the Eagles and the stuff, their lifestyle, and what they did, and even where songs and records were cut and so forth. And I just, again, it was one of my favorite records on that I've ever known, but not knowing that much about it made it more exciting for me to talk to you about it, and then kind of hear a little bit what you read, and also have some of your input. So, man, I'm so glad I picked it. I had such a good time, dude.
Thank you, sir. I'm happy you brought it up. I'm happy you brought the album up. It was a great one to talk about. I cannot wait to have you on here again for a second appearance.
Absolutely.
So,
We'll talk about it again. John,
Groundhog Day all over again.
John, leading off with the Bernie Ledden question was brilliant, because I'll tell you what, next time, if we're going to stay, we can stay with the Eagles, and you and me will focus on the 4 Bernie Ledden records.
You got it.
That will be a party for anyone that want to geek out and dork out with us.
Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you one and all for coming out and showing love and commenting and just being here and keep making this thing run. Without you all, the viewers and commenters and everything, we would not be able to do this. So have a great rest of your night, wherever you might be in this wide world of ours. Take care, much love, and may God richly bless you all.